Okay, I've gone back and forth about whether I should actually talk about this, but here we are, and I know that once I tell this story, there's no taking it back. But it is what it is. I started this channel for a reason, and here we go. And I know exactly what some people are gonna say. They're gonna say I imagined it, but they're gonna say it was a dream, sleep paralysis, or some kind of fake memory, whatever. Because you know what? I'll be honest with you, that's exactly what I would say if someone told me this story. But I'm going to tell you what happened. And then I'm going to let you decide. If you care, if you think I'm crazy, that's fine. You don't want to stop watching my channel, please don't do that. But anyway, here we go. I think I was abducted. And not like yesterday or something, super, super long time ago. I was a kid. And there are parts of that night that I still can't explain. So, before I tell you what happened though, there's something important you need to understand, okay? Stories like mine, they're not new. This isn't something that, I'm gonna share and you're gonna think, oh yeah, whatever, everyone else talks about this. They do actually, okay? But it's actually part of a much bigger history, like huge. And one of the stories, like this is one of the most famous stories, and my brother told me this about a couple back in like 1961. This happened in 1961. Betty and Barney Hill, they're driving through New Hampshire, and all of a sudden they see like this strange light following them, and all of a sudden hours later, they were home, and that's all they can remember, right? And there's a whole bunch of time that it wasn't sort of accounted for, and now people are calling this missing time, but I mean, so they decided to do hypnosis, and they kind of describe being aboard some kind of real craft, like really weird extraterrestrial craft, and their story kind of became one of the cases that helped establish what we think of as the classic alien abduction narrative. Now, none of that proves that aliens abducted them, okay? There have been plenty of skeptical explanations over the years, but the Hill case became sort of incredibly influential. And here's where things get interesting. People who claim experiences like this often describe some kind of the same thing. Oh, I saw a light. They describe paralysis, like I couldn't move, like a strange humming, vibration, music, missing time, whatever. And sometimes they even say there's figures standing near their bed. And that's the interesting part. And now, when I was a kid, I didn't know any of this, okay? I didn't know paralysis and scientific explanations and all that stuff. I just know I woke up in the middle of the night. Well, at least I think I woke up. And that's one of the things that bothers me because I couldn't move. Like here I am in my bed and I just can't move. Okay, my eyes are open, like I'm looking around, I can see the room, and there's this like strange light coming through the window, and no, it's not car headlights, and no, it's not the moonlight. I mean, I know that's what you're thinking, but it wasn't, because I know what those two things look like, and that wasn't it. It was kind of like a white light, and it had this blue tint to it, and I remember thinking like, what the hell is this, man? Like, and then it's like I heard something or I felt something. It was kind of like a vibration. Not exactly a sound, not exactly a feeling, but it felt like I could hear it and feel it at the same time. Do you know what that means? Like you anyway. Um, and then I realized then I realized there's somebody standing in the room. Like, what? I know, man. It was there. And I'm a kid. I'd be freaking out. Like I'd be running down the stairs. Okay, if that happened to me today. And to be honest with you, I don't remember seeing it come in. I don't remember it opening the door. Like it was just there, small, tiny, thin, ugly. I don't know, and it was completely still. And I know this is the part that everyone's going to expect me to say. Oh, it had big black eyes and it was a gray alien. It wasn't any of that. That's not what I remember most clearly. Okay, here's the thing. The thing I remember most clearly is the way it moved its head, like just slightly, like it was kind of studying me. I remember that. That's stuck in my mind. Okay, and I remember thinking, this makes no sense, man. I didn't understand what I was thinking. I didn't understand what was happening, and I thought, looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, like, this thing knows I'm awake, like it's looking at me. And then that's where my memory stops. like completely, okay? No spaceship, no examination table, no flying through the ceiling, nothing. None of that stuff. Just nothing. And then the next thing I remember is I'm awake. Okay, I'm awake again. Except now, the light's gone, the room feels normal, I can move again. And I remember looking at the clock and yeah, time had passed. I can't remember how much, more than I expected, and I can't remember if I was getting up for school or whatever. I just know that I was late for whatever, and something happened. And I can't tell you what happened during that missing period. Like maybe nothing happened. Maybe I just fell asleep. That's entirely excuse me, that's entirely possible. But I've kind of never been able to shake that feeling to this day. And that something happened between those two memories, you know? Like what happened in between? Like was I dissected? Like what the hell, man? You know, and here's the part that makes this complicated, okay? And I know there's actually a very good scientific explanation for this, you know, for a lot of what I just described. It's called sleep paralysis. I get it. You know, during REM sleep, your brain normally prevents your muscles from acting out your dreams. I know. That's exactly what it is. I get it. You know, sometimes consciousness returns. I get it. You know, before the paralysis switches off, I'm still like, oh my God, what's happening? And then you're awake, you know, and temporarily unable to move. And people experience sleep paralysis, they have incredible vivid hallucinations. I've talked to other people that have actually reported this. And I mean, they report figures, they report shadows, people standing beside their bed, pressure on their chest, different kinds of sounds, vibrations, you know, even the sensation of floating, which to me means there's a perfectly reasonable possibility that my brain malfunctioned and manufactured everything. And if that's exactly what happened, then the human brain is capable of creating something terrifyingly convincing, okay? But there's another part of the story. You know, I mean, UFOs aren't fringe objects anymore, okay? For decades, talking seriously about UFOs could destroy someone's credibility. Like I'm here doing this now. Fantastic. But I mean, pilots sometimes didn't report sightings because they didn't want people questioning their judgment.
Command, we have
I
visual on
get
the
it,
object.
you know,
Requesting
but
permission to
that's
engage.
changed recently.
Stand
Okay,
by, leader.
the
Maintain
United
distance.
States government now officially uses the term UAP,
Command, I have visual on the
unidentified
object.
anomalous
No visual
phenomena.
images or
I get
markings.
it. You know, even the Pentagon established the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. That's AARO, or they call it ARROL. And that's to investigate reports involving anomalous objects. NASA has also publicly studied how UAP reports could be investigated scientifically. Okay, military pilots have come out. They've described encounters with objects they couldn't immediately identify. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, you know, whatever, man. That does not mean the government has confirmed extraterrestrial spacecraft or life. It hasn't. But unidentified, simply means we don't currently know what something was or is. And I think keeping that distinction is incredibly important because the real mystery is interesting enough, okay? Without having to exaggerate it. I get it. You know, and here's a question that bothers me the most. You know, I've wondered, like, here's what I've wondered ever since. Like, suppose even a tiny percentage of these strange experiences aren't dreams. Like, you know, what would that evidence actually look like? Like, I mean, think about it, because if something technologically advanced enough to travel here from wherever wanted to observe us, I mean, why would it leave obvious evidence behind? Like the pyramids, like who cares? Like why, what it's not gonna land on the White House lawn. It's not gonna come up and say, hey, look at me. It's not gonna introduce itself, okay? Humans don't introduce themselves every time we study animals, okay? We tranquilize them, we measure them, we tag them, okay, and then we put them back. That's what we do, all right? And that's not a particularly comforting thought. It really isn't. But that's another story, you know. But if you've watched Sector Earth, you already know about Kip. That's why I invented him, okay? He's supposedly an RST technician assigned to monitor Earth. And yes, he's a character. He's not real, okay? Sector Earth is science fiction. It is. But, there's a reason I created him. Because he lets me talk about subjects like this without pretending that speculation is evidence. And we can sometimes genuinely document things like Project Blue Book, the WOW signal, government UAP investigations, Roswell, which, by the way, did happen. And, whatever it happens to be, whatever. And then we ask, what if? That's where Sector Earth begins. Seriously, facts on one side, fiction on the other, and somewhere in between these two, there's a really interesting story. And that's what Kip's going to tell you, and that's what I'm going to tell you. It's going to be between him and I. And whichever one you like the most, whatever. But Kip and I have one disagreement, though, because according to him, I wasn't abducted. Well, you know what? Because honestly, I think I was. And apparently I was abducted. But according to him, I was temporarily relocated for administrative purposes. And that sounds exactly like something Kip would say. But whatever. It's all good. I'm just here to introduce myself and tell you that, yes, there's a man behind Kip, and I'm it. So, but there is one detail about that night, though, that I want to get back to, okay? Something I never mentioned. And I don't know what it means, but when I remember that figure standing in the room, I don't remember being afraid of it. Not at first, at least. I remember recognizing it. And that just freaks me right out. Because I know that's impossible. I never seen it before. At least I don't think I had. So, was it sleep paralysis? Probably. Was it a dream? Maybe. Was it something else? I can't prove that. I wish I could. I really do. But I'm not going to pretend I can. But that's the reason I'm telling these stories. Because there are things we know, and then there are things we think we know, and things we still haven't figured out. And those are the ones I find interesting. The ones we can't figure out. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, or you couldn't explain, missing time, a strange light, waking up unable to move, or simply that feeling that something was standing there in the room with you, tell me about it in the comments. I'm serious. Talk about it. It's an open forum. I'm actually thinking about starting a P.O. box so you guys can actually mail me letters and I can open them. I want to do that. Tell me what you think about that. And I know Kip specifically told me, don't do this. So that's exactly what I'm going to do because I don't care about Kip. This is my time. And that's exactly what I want to do. So thanks for watching. This is Sector Earth because some files should probably stay classified. Take care.